again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It is another Gills in the Blood Chats 2. Very pleased to announce that joining me from the other side of the pond this afternoon is instantly recognisable former goalkeeper Jason Brown, who has agreed to come on and talk about his career in Kent. Jason, first of all, appreciate you coming on and taking time out of your day.
No, well, it's morning here, so I've not woke up.
Sorry, of course, yeah.
Good morning and good afternoon.
How you doing? You good, yeah?
Yeah, I'm good. Good. Obviously, it's a bit frustrating with everything that's going on, but yeah, I'm good. I'm happy. It's a nice part of the world, even though there's still a lot going on, but it's a great part of the world, and yeah, I'm happy.
Good man. Good to hear that. Right. We'll go all the way back then. Best part of 20 years now, staggeringly, makes us all feel old, I think. You arrived at Gills in March 2001, I think it was. But I want to talk about the start of your career, pre-Gillingham. I've sent you the questions in advance, obviously, so you know what's coming to a degree. Just wanted to ask, is it fair to say that in terms of the start to your professional career, it wasn't the smoothest? I think you got rejected by Charlton as a youngster. As a youngster, you joined Gills as a youngster still anyway, especially in terms of goalkeeping age. You was rejected by Charlton. Had a trial at Sheffield United. That didn't work out. And then all of a sudden, Gills in the Championship, or the old Division 1 as it was then, offered you a trial and then a contract, and suddenly you're a Division 1 footballer. That was quite the turnaround.
Yeah, it was. At Charlton, I felt I maybe done enough. I remember I was in the squad for when Charlton were in the Premier League. And, I was in the squad, so I felt that maybe I'd done enough. But at Charlton, there was 5 senior goalkeepers. You had Mike Salmon, Andy Pesson, Simon Royce, Dean Kiley, Sasa Ilic. And then there was a guy who was older than me, Paul Smith, and then there was myself. So I was way down the pecking order, but I was always training with the first team and stuff like that. But yeah, there was a lot that went on before that. One of my teammates died in pre-season when we was on a camping trip. I went away because obviously the academy goes up. At the time, I think it was going up to 23s or 19s, and we went away on a pre-season trip, and he died, Pierre Bellini, and a lot was on us. A lot of pressure was on us to deal with that. But also,
it's not something you expect, I suppose, when you're trying to forge a career as a professional footballer.
Right, and there's a lot to deal with when you're expected to be a professional football player, and you're in that year of contracts and stuff like that. So when that happened in July, August time, and it came to like Christmas time, I just felt it was the right time to go and ask to see what's happening with myself.
Sure.
Because I needed to know. I was like, if nothing's going to happen here, then I need to go and try and find a club, and I want that opportunity before anyone else does. I was just trying to look into the future as such, as saying, okay, if I can get out there before anyone else, then I can possibly show what I can do and sign somewhere before the end of the season.
Cool.
So when I went to see Curves, at first they said, look, give us a little more time. Then I gave it, I think, a month, and then I went to see him again, and I said, look, what's happening? And they said, look, we're not going to be in a position to offer you anything if you can try and find. So I said, brilliant. They said, look, you can stay here, train with us and stuff like that. So then, Dean Kiley spoke to Neil Warnock and helped to get me up to Sheffield United. I went there. I played in a game against Wolves, I think. We won 1-0. I had a relatively good time. I really liked the city of Sheffield. But, they just said that they was looking for someone with more experience. So I was like, okay. So I remember I was getting on the train coming home, and then I got a phone call from a scout of Gillingham's. His name was Bernie. I can't remember his second name. And Bernie said, "Look, we've seen you play. We'd like you to come into Gills and have a go." So I came in, and the rest is history, as they say. You know, I played in a game against Cardiff. At the time, I think it was Cardiff or Bournemouth. Sorry, my granddad died in amongst that, so that was quite tough because I was supposed to play in the game. Then I think my granddad died prior to that, and then Hesse said, "Look, you don't have to play," and I wanted to play. And then I remember getting on the coach afterwards, and Hesse came to see me, and he said, "Look, we want to sign you. We want to offer you a deal." And yeah, that was it. And I signed, and I was 19 at the time, so yeah, it was a great opportunity. I had some friends already at the club, so yeah, it was a great move.
Yeah, so I just want to touch, obviously, because you just mentioned there that you had twice, obviously, bereavements in terms of a friend and a relative, and I know you're quite vocal on social media, and this isn't a planned part of the conversation, but now that you've brought it up, I just wanted, because I know you speak quite a lot about, you know, mental health, and obviously at the moment we've got all this racism problems going on, and the Black Lives Matter movement and stuff like that. Not to go away from the football too much, but I imagine at the time, Jason, that the support network wasn't quite the same in terms of mental health and stuff, and men struggling as it is now. I mean, and I've been through it myself, but what was you know, at the time, was it a case of, you know, you're a pro footballer and from the outside, people perceive you to be earning good money, so you should be happy all the time? What was the support network like that? I'm guessing it wasn't anywhere near what it is in terms of what we see today in the professional game.
Well, firstly, Matt, thank you for sharing that you're a sufferer. Not many people do that when they ask the question. You know, they ask the questions almost like they dance around it, but you know that they're asking mainly about themselves.
I've tried that for ages, Jason, and it's me, and so I quite happily talk about it now. I mean, I'd rather talk about football, don't get me wrong, but it is something that's out there, and it's something that I think I've certainly realised that more of us as men suffer with since I made the conscious effort to tell people that I did suffer from it, I think. And I was just curious, obviously, because, you know, if you go back in the 80s and the 90s, and maybe even still when you first started making your way in the game, it was probably a sign of weakness. That's what I'm trying to ask. Whereas now it's not, and it's probably gone right the other way. Whereas players are encouraged to talk.
Well, the players are. I think, honestly, players are encouraged, because I don't think the more it's been accepted because it has to be accepted. If that makes sense, because there are people speaking about it. You know, we're trying to learn about it, but we're not doing enough about it, if that makes sense. So we're trying to learn, but we're not doing enough. And what I mean by doing enough, the financial backing, because like anything really, if you really want to tackle something, you're going to need a financial backing.
Of course.
And it still is a taboo conversation to have, i.e. with the government, i.e. in football, in sport, because some people may still deem you as being weak. I think in football, you have the sports psychologists. I think, you know, players, like you invest in many other things, you need to invest in yourself, in regards of maybe having an outside that you speak to, away from football, because you just need that break. You know, the great thing about my counsellor that I had was he never judged me. He didn't know me. He didn't know nothing about me, and that was great, because I could speak openly and honestly about a lot of stuff that's happened in my life.
Sure.
Regarding, at the time, there was no support, none whatsoever. But, you know, that was part
that basically stopped at Hesse saying, if you don't want to play in the game, you don't want to. You don't have to.
No,
but
listen,
aside from that, there wasn't any sort of, you know, you could go to meetings or anything like that.
No. Oh, hell. no, no, and that wasn't just at Gillingham. That was at anywhere. You
Oh yeah,
didn't have
that
them.
was in the game as a whole.
Yeah, yeah. You know, you're institutionalized. You just that's what you do, and if I'll be honest with you, Matt, that's what I've been doing since I was like 8 years of age, um, maybe even younger. A lot went on in my childhood. Though I think I had I look back and I go, I had a amazing mother who done an amazing job. You know, my dad, though he wasn't what you'd say is hands-on, his wisdom, you know, and things like that was great for me, and helped and has helped and helps me a lot in my life today.
Sure.
Um, you know, and I just always have had the blinkers on to the point now, Matt, where I've come away from football, I'm still learning a lot about Jason Brown, the person. So I know Jason Brown, the athlete, which I do tap into and has served me well in life, has served me well, obviously, in my career. But the person I'm still getting to know. And that's the thing with football is people don't understand is that you just are like that. You can't really think about other things. You
So
can't
you
really think
almost
about.
had to train yourself to forget about, like you just said, you had to forget about Jason, and you had to
Yes,
just concentrate on goalkeeper. If we're
yes,
trying to
yes.
break it
So
down and to make it simple, that was the way you had to live your life if you wanted to be a professional
yes,
footballer.
Jason the person,
And then
Jason
the
the
goalkeeper,
person.
the athlete over this side, which was the bit that got you to where you are now. And now, like you say, you've retired, you can then think about Jason again. Which shouldn't be, that's not
Yes.
right, is it? That's not right at all when you think about it. And it's so stupid now that because we hear more about it, that people have been forced to live their life like that. Because I'll ask you then, because obviously you're in that position. I've never played football to that standard. Do you think if you'd been more open about it early on in your career, you'd have got where you did? Or would you think clubs would have gone, we might leave him alone? We might say, nah, we're
Well,
not sure.
I think it's fair to say clubs would have probably left me alone. But it's like this, Matt. Many people have or a lot of people have a lot to say about football players, and you brought this up. People just look at, oh, you earn loads of money. What have you
Yeah.
got to moan about? You know, you can go and buy what you want. That's not that though that is the case. That's not the case with every football player. But you look at it like this: you become a professional footballer at the age of 16.
Yep.
16, you're a teenager.
So you give up
You're
on
still you're
being an
still a
adolescent.
fresh teenager. So you lose 16, 17, 18, 19, say 20, you lose 5 years of your, as you said, adolescent age where a lot of kids that age are going out, maybe drinking. I'm not condoning that, drinking, partying, drugs, whatever they're doing all of that from that age. And then roughly they say in your 20s, you kind of come out of that and you realize, oh, do you know what, I've got to get my life together a little bit more and so and then ages, you don't do that. Then what happens is that once you become more established in football, and what I mean by established is when you're playing in the first team, because now you're like, right, I'm here. Though you can't take it for granted, you're like, I'm here. So then the money comes and the freedom comes, and then all of a sudden with that comes the fame, comes the people recognizing you, and all of that comes. And then it's like, now I kind of want to relive my adolescent years where I missed. But the difference is that I may be able to go out and I've got maybe £2,000 in my pocket to go out and do that. So normally kids of that age go out, they have maybe 50 quid in their pocket that they've got from their parents. I've now got £2,000 in my pocket to spend on to spend on that night.
But the trouble is, you're probably, to a degree, what other people to be someone else's property as well, because you can't go and have a night out if you're playing in the Championship or the Premier League like I would, because like you just said, you're going to be recognisable. So then is it fair to say that your life then becomes everyone else's as well, almost? Because you
I
can't
think
pop to the shop.
it's different from when I was playing to what it is now. So now, very much so. Back then, there was still that element of that. So if you ever went out after a game on a Tuesday night, you know, and you went into Chatham or somewhere, the likelihood is you're going to bump into a few Gills fans who were always nice and always pleasant, but you're always going to get one. Or you may get someone who's jealous, i.e. the bouncers that try and act a bit silly, which has happened. And, you know, you relive your childhood. But this time it's in the media, it's out. And then you get this tag of you love to party, you love to drink, then the press get hold of it, look at this, then the media have a great way of spinning things. I look at what's happened recently with the coronavirus, how that was spun, where the MPs were coming out and saying, oh, these football players, blah, blah, blah. You know, that's the negative side of it. But that's what happens when you're institutionalized, is that you just want to release. After a game, you want to release. You want to get away. You just want to be normal. So
it comes back to what you said. You want to be Jason.
Yes. Yeah. But at the same time, that person you don't know and you can't really let out, because you're always having to be the athlete. And the athlete is very selfish, very single-minded. It's all about me, driven, and really an ultra competitive. And that's the two sides of the person. Now, as I said, what I have now is I have Jason that I'm learning a lot about, that I realize. Well, sorry, Jason, the person that I'm having to live with with the depression, and I treat my depression like it's a drug, like I'm an addict. So I never say to anyone, "Oh, I've had depression. I'm in recovery." That's the way I say it. That's the way I deal with it. Is that I'm in recovery. I'm never, because it does come on. Still now, I have my down days.
Yeah, I can relate to that as well. Yeah.
And my way of dealing with it is accepting it. I'm quite I'm quite an introvert. So with the depression and being an introvert, I do sometimes distance myself, which my fiance, she's amazing. It can be hard. I imagine it can be really hard, because I'm it's like that. I can be an extrovert, and then all of a sudden I become quite the introvert, and it's black and white, and I go well within myself. I'll go quiet. I like having my own space, and that's because the internal war that's going on in my mind, in trying to calm my thoughts down, trying to calm that all down, and not letting them take over. And that's now where I've realized, as I've got older, I realized that, and that's also down to Matt reading. I've read a lot of books about the mind, and trying to I wouldn't say control the mind, but trying to work with it. Trying to work with the mind with regards to don't let it overtake you, especially the panic inside of it. Is trying to work with it, and try and find solutions how to keep it calm. And also look out for the triggers, things that may trigger me to put me in.
I can see it coming a lot better now than when I first had it 3 years ago. And I see what you're saying there, because I said had earlier on in the conversation, but you're right, it is always there. I've had a couple of days during this lockdown where but like you say, you can sense it coming, and you know how to sort of preempt it and deal with it a little bit better. Whereas obviously the first time, like anything, it creeps up on you and it's a massive surprise. And you talk about being introvert or extrovert, and I used to work in the pub trade, and it was eventually the pub trade that made me ill. And you have to be outgoing and super sociable and always smiling when you're doing that job. And that was the biggest thing for me. The hardest struggle for me when it first happened was the fact that I didn't know why I was quiet. And again, you link back to saying two sides of Jason. I suddenly had two versions of Matt, and that was the bloke who, when he was happy, was messing around and, bantering the wife and the kids and his mates or whatever. And, I'm a football coach on a Sunday, and that was my release. But then there were times when, and I'll give an example, so it was December 2017. And I quit my job because it was making me ill, and I was living out my savings account. And it was a week before Christmas. I'd gone and had a shower, and then the missus had jumped in the shower after me, and I'd come down. I think I'd made some cheese and biscuits or something, just laying around and in the kitchen, and I'd come back in and I was watching Sports Review of the Year, BBC Sports Personality of the Year, and the wife come back in the front room, and I was sitting there, and I literally had tears running down my face, and she said, "Why are you crying?" And I burst out laughing, and I said, "I haven't got a clue. I genuinely haven't got a clue." But it was something that I'd seen or heard on whatever I was watching, and I don't to this day know what it was, but there was something that triggered me, and it had just happened. And I find myself, I get a lot more emotional at stuff now than I probably did before that I wouldn't get emotional at. But like you said, you just have to learn to deal with it. It's part of me now. I'm not sure which side of me all the time, but it is part of one of them. And I make a joke of it now. That's another way of release. Like my youngest is only 6, and she laughs and says, "Oh, like Daddy's got a crazy brain," and stuff like that. And that almost makes it feel smaller and you know, less serious, which helps. But yeah, we all have days where it's more of a struggle than it is on other days, and
you have to be transparent with it, because a lot of people around you, when you're going through that, don't know how to act, and that can sometimes be an added pressure on you, is because they don't know how to act. They see you're feeling a certain way, they see you feeling a certain way, then they start, and they don't mean to, because they come around, "How are you? What's the matter? What have I done?" And then that becomes an added pressure. And that, and I think that's why it's so important to try and be transparent, to be like, "Look, I'm just feeling a bit low today." And as I said to my fiance, is amazing. She's really a great support. And then it's trying to, then once I become more at one with that and understanding myself, that where I am right now, then I'm on this right steps of feeling better. Where if I stay in denial, when I was playing, Matt, I used to read a lot of books, and you have The Secret and stuff like that. And when I
was given that, I watched the DVD. That really helped.
Yeah.
And again, it was the thing that it was the things that you don't need to make such a big deal in your head. Don't make them such a big deal in your head. I used to have an issue with sleeping. Now, if I'm awake early in the morning and I can't get back to sleep, I'll open the window and listen to the birds singing or something stupid like that. And it sounds silly, and it might sound silly to people that don't suffer, but it's just finding something, a positive in the negative, so to speak, and it just brings you back down and like you say, back onto an even keel more than if you start trying to fight it and forcing yourself back to sleep. Then it doesn't happen, and then you get more stressed out, and then you end up going around in a vicious circle. But yeah, I did watch. I haven't read the book. I've watched the DVD.
Well, I've read the book, watched the DVD. I still have copies. I have copies on my phone, my iPad, and stuff like that. And my thing was, Matt, is when I was reading that, you always try and say, "Oh, you want to feel wealth, health, abundance. You do your gratitudes and so forth. But you never really you understand it. And it's only now that I've gone through my breakdown that I understand, and I understand the fact that you've got to take time. You've got to let these things manifest. Many people read these books, and when they read these books, it says, "Oh, when you're feeling down, just smile and say, 'I'm having a great day.'" No, that doesn't help. What that does is that all you're doing is suppressing it, and by suppressing it, eventually it's going to come out. And you don't realise that.
You're just pretending to be something else again, and that's not you.
You're smiling. Exactly. You're
smile
smiling
when you feel happy, but if you're not, then you talk about it or admit that you're not. Yeah.
Right. So in the back of your mind, in the front of your mind, you say, "Yeah, I'm happy, I'm fine, I'm fine." But in the back of your mind, you're not.
Yeah.
And then it comes out. It comes out, whether it be, i.e., your body language or something like that. So it's only since I've had my breakdown that I've come to understand that you can't just say, "I'm fine." It's not as easy as that. You first and foremost, you have to accept where you are and how you feel, which is fine. It's okay to feel rubbish. It's okay to feel a bit crappy about yourself. It's what you do next. So, okay, I feel crappy about myself. Do you know what? If the people around me, i.e. my partner, i.e. my kids or whoever, my mum, let me let them know. so they don't just see me moping around, and then they get a bit agitated. Then it can cause friction, and you can end up saying or taking it out on them when you don't mean to. So let them know, Mum, I'm not just feeling great today. I feel a bit low. Okay, then they back off and they leave you, and then you slowly start getting better. You've taken that pressure off yourself. I think those are the important steps. But again, it's difficult when you don't know how. And these are the conversations that need to be had in football clubs with young athletes, because a lot of them will be suffering. You asked a question earlier, you said about my depression. My depression only started when I went to Blackburn. That's when I became depressed.
Right.
Okay. When I track it back and I look over the years, Blackburn, I was 26 when it started. I had an eating disorder. I was bulimic. No one knows that. And that's when I say my depression started. I was earning very, very, very good money. And part of my self-harming, self-therapy, whatever you want to call it, was earning that money and spending that money. I wasn't a gambler or anything like that, but I was just caught in a depression and trying to make myself feel a bit better was spending the money. I wanted to give my children and everyone at that time the best of everything, but there was no thought behind it. And that's when my depression really started. The pressure that came with that. As I said, my eating disorder was part of that. And yeah, it just snowballed, and it just, what was it, 33 years, 33 is when I had my breakdown. 2015 is when I had my breakdown.
Right.
And then I look back, and then, with my counselor, we done what's called we called it like strip back,
Right.
and just bare all. And then that's when I was able to say, okay, over the years, I've not been happy. Where do I go back to? 20s, when I was 26 at Blackburn.
When, again, if you took it back and you said to a football fan to look at Jason Brown, he's just earned his move out of the Championship to the Premier League with Blackburn. He should be his happiest. He's probably earning more money. He's got a lucrative contract. Why should he be depressed? Would be the thing back then. And again, it was probably because it was in the early stages of social media as well. So in a way, there was, when you sort of back the thing with your nights out, I suppose you could get away with a bit more back then because there wasn't everybody with a camera phone like these days.
That's right.
And I remember a comment that Will Smith made that I read last week while all of this Black Lives Matter thing's going on. And he said that racism hasn't got worse in the last 30 years. It's just that these days everybody records it. But that's probably for another chat. And we'll try and get back onto the football a little bit because we've gone off on a tangent. And I really appreciate you opening up because, like you said to me when I said it, it's still something that I think probably too many men don't do. And hopefully, if we get this out online, that maybe more, and even if one or two open up and go and, phone their doctor or whatever, then yourself and myself, we've done our little bit. But we got way late, but let's